It's the college football playoff rankings. We are live and ready to reveal the first edition of this year's CFP committee rankings. Ohio State bolstered its resume with a huge come-from-behind victory over Penn State last week, thanks to J.T. Barrett's huge fourth quarter and a 39-38 win. Georgia stayed unbeaten with the trouncing of Florida, sending Jim McElwain to the sidelines and fired altogether. Iowa State knocked off TCU to dampen the Big 12's playoff hopes. Who will be in, who will be out, and who is number one? It's time to get our questions answered, at least for 1 week. Bama, Georgia, or Georgia, Bama. Seems like that's going to be one of the two undefeated SEC teams sitting at number one, but then chaos after that. How will the committee order the lesser-tested undefeateds of Miami and Wisconsin, the one-loss Blue Buds of Ohio State and Notre Dame? And how do they view the Big 12? TCU, Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma all sit with one loss, but does Oklahoma's win in the horseshoe serve as a trump card, or has Oklahoma's recent close games hurt them? And then out west, is the Pac-12 already on the outs? Let's get going. Time for our questions to get answered. We reveal the top 25 right now.
Man crates. Awesome gifts for men in real wooden crates, wrapped in a cocoon of duct tape, or housed in ammo cans that are virtually indestructible. Some gifts he'll get to assemble himself. Some gifts you'll beg him to share. And some gifts are sealed inside layers of rock-solid concrete. Gifts guys love, from grilling gear to old-school video games and more. Man crates. Awesome gifts for men.
Hello and welcome. It is a very exciting day in the college football world as the first college football playoff rankings will be revealed here shortly. And right here on Chat Sports is the only place you can watch the rankings revealed on Facebook Live. And I am joined here with James Yoder and Tom Downey, our college football analysts here at Chat Sports. Guys, what are you most looking forward to seeing when these rankings are revealed?
Well, I, for one, am most interested in two things. It's who's number one, Georgia, Alabama, although that'll get settled down the road, so maybe not as enticing long term, but today it's a little interesting to me. Number two, though, is where these teams shake out. It's Ohio State, Oklahoma, and their head-to-head matchup, Oklahoma won, and then what do they do with Notre Dame? I think a lot of us think Notre Dame should be ranked pretty high, maybe in the top 3 or 4. And what does the committee think of their schedule so far? 2 top 15 wins the last couple of weeks, and that really close loss to Georgia.
Could not agree more. The discussion for me and the interest is not what 1 or 2 really. It's going to be Georgia, Bama, some order, and that'll get shaken out in the SEC championship game most likely, or someone will lose and kind of takes care of itself. Yep. What I want to know: who's 3, who's 10, what's everything else in between? Where do the undefeated Miami and Wisconsin teams ranked? Who is the top one-loss team? Is it Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oklahoma, or even Clemson? Yep. And James, I'll tell you right now, I swear to God, if Oklahoma is ranked behind Ohio State, I'm going to blow a gasket on it.
Will you break something?
Can I?
It's possible.
It depends on what it is.
All right.
All right,
Fair
you guys.
enough.
Well, we still have a few moments before the committee releases to us the playoff rankings. So we want to go ahead and talk about who's hot and who's not in the college football playoff race. So, guys, first up, we have Ohio State. They are hot, coming off a big win, probably the best win thus far against Penn State, 39-38.
Yeah, it's probably one of the better wins this entire college football season right now. Ohio State is hot, Tom. They kept themselves right in the thick of the playoff rankings. I don't know if they necessarily control their own destiny because of the Oklahoma factor. The Oklahoma factor, I think, is not only hurting Ohio State, it's hurting the entire Big Ten at large because, in general, I think any team that would win the Big Ten would be beholden to being ranked below a one-loss Big 12 champion Oklahoma. Now, if it's Ohio State or a Wisconsin, or potentially a Penn State, if something catastrophic happened, like maybe Ohio State lost twice.
I totally agree there. Do you want to show people why Ohio State's hot now, James?
Why are they hot?
Well, because they beat Penn State. We do have the highlights of that game. We'll get to those in just a second here. This was actually a fantastic game, James, all the way down to the wire. We start with the very first play of the game. Saquon Barkley on the kickoff. James, what do you never, ever do?
You don't kick to Saquon Barkley.
Guess what Ohio State did?
They kicked to him.
They did it all game long. They had major issues. Saquon Barkley runs it all the way back. 97 yards for the score. Just like that, Penn State up 7-0. 14-3 now. More Saquon Barkley. Great play here with the vision as Barkley cuts back, gets a big gain there, takes in the end of the score. It is 21-3. Penn State up early, 21-10 now. It's Trace McSorley's turn. Buckeyes will get 10 points after this to make the cut in the lead now, 28-20. Trace McSorley goes deep downfield, and it's picked off by Denzel Ward. Or is it, James, after review?
Tom, we were watching this together, and I think there was no way they could overturn that, but they did.
They did, and in the end, they said a tie goes to the receiver, so it's a touchdown. Penn State up 35-20, fourth quarter. Here comes J.T. Barrett. Johnny Dixon over the middle for the touchdown there. 38-27 now, under 5 to go. Barrett to Dixon again. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Failed two-point try, though. 38-33, under 2 to go. J.T. Barrett finds Marcus Ball, the tight end. The improbable might be done by Barrett, who completed every pass in the fourth quarter with 3 touchdowns. One last chance. Penn State 4th and 15. McSorley under pressure, rolls out to his right, just chucks it downfield. It's knocked incomplete. And with that, James, the chaos theory enters college football.
Tom, it is going to be so chaotic because if Penn State would have won out, things would have been so clear in this picture with the Big Ten specifically. Penn State wins out, they're in, or Wisconsin wins out, they're in. But Ohio State throwing this win, this last second win, this time all-time win. This is a legendary game. We watched it together. I thought Ohio State was done for. J.T. Barrett, all-time comeback there in the fourth quarter to lead Ohio State to victory over Penn State and get them, Tom. A lot of people wrote them off just 5 or 6 weeks ago after Oklahoma. They are back in the thick of the college football playoff rankings.
It's going to be fun stuff.
For those of you just joining, my name is Jordan Giorgio. I'm alongside James Yoder and Tom Downey for our college football playoff ranking show. The rankings will be released to us shortly, but we want to let you guys know that we are indeed presented by Man Crates. Tom, go ahead and tell us how awesome Man Crates is.
Jordan, do you know a guy who needs an awesome gift?
Yes, always.
Get him a Man Crate. mancrates.com/chatsports. I'm talking college football barware, or just, I should say college sports teams barware, jerky grams, project hits, and much, much more, James.
Tom, you've got a barware now. You got a Dallas Cowboys one. I got
it.
that Michigan football one. They're hooking us up. If I am buying a gift for a guy, especially a guy who's a college football fan, and any guy watching this show is going to be a college football fan, they might want to give. They know college football fans. Get the barware for your college football team. Someone's going to see it, open up. It's going to be Georgia logo, Alabama logo, Ohio State. No matter what team, they've got it. mancrates.com/chatsports, the easiest way to buy gifts for guys.
It is
and
indeed.
they are definitely making us ladies' life easier shopping for these kind of guys. So we want to go ahead and move on now with our next team who's hot. Notre Dame coming off a big win too after shutting down NC State 35-14. Tom, what do you have to say about this?
Tell you what, I think this is a good Notre Dame team. Their ground offense, James, has been unbelievable. Georgia shut them down. Nobody else has done so since. They have run over everyone. Josh Adams has looked amazing. And the big thing for Notre Dame, another quality win over NC State. They got a few more changes the rest of the way. Stanford, Miami, and Florida.
Tom, I thought this was a 6-loss Notre Dame team to start the year. I am more impressed with this coaching job than anything Brian Kelly has ever done in his entire career as a coach. So I think Notre Dame is controlling their own destiny at this point. Their only loss is to what will likely be a number 1 or a number 2 ranked Georgia by 1 point. I think they beat Miami handily, Tom. I don't care if they played that game on the moon. I think they beat Miami very handily. I think the toughest game actually down the stretch is actually going to be that Stanford game.
I agree.
Final game of the year. They play that man ball power kind of offense that I don't think Notre Dame sees as much as they see.
Makes it a close game too.
Yeah, it makes it a closer game.
You don't get blown out playing that.
Stanford will slow down the pace of the game a little bit, and Stanford's played Brian Kelly really tough over the last 6-7 years, and so
Always a good game.
I think that game is going to be great. It's the same weekend as Alabama, Auburn, Ohio State, Michigan. Just a phenomenal week in college football.
Okay, guys, let's go ahead and move on to the teams that are not hot in this college football playoff race. Next up, we have Penn State, obviously not hot after that loss in Columbus to Ohio State like we just mentioned. Where do you foresee this Nittany Lion team headed,
Look,
Tom?
they are still in the mix because let's say Oklahoma loses a game. At that point, James, the Oklahoma issue is really no more.
Yep.
It remains a quality loss for Ohio State. Let's assume Ohio State wins out. I think everyone would agree that Penn State's a better team than Wisconsin. Wisconsin's played no one. So let's say you get to the crazy scenarios. Maybe Notre Dame falls to Stanford.
Yep.
They have 2 losses. You have a 1-loss Clemson as your conference champion. You know you're going to get Bama in. If Georgia falls as well, if you get another upset, you could see 2 Big Ten teams in. Penn State has a chance but they're going to need some help with that loss to OSU. They no longer control their own destiny.
They need a lot of help, Tom, like you said. They've got to get multiple conferences with those 2 losses. I actually think they're rooting against Notre Dame. And probably they want Notre Dame to beat Miami, but lose to somebody else.
Everyone is rooting for Notre Dame to lose games.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how about this scenario, though? Just want to hear about this one for a second.
Right.
Ohio State drops another game. They still get in the Big Ten championship game, Tom, because of that head-to-head win versus Penn State. It'll be the exact reverse scenario of last year. Let's say it's Michigan, the exact scenario of last year. Out-of-conference loss, head-to-head win, conference loss to Michigan. Ohio State goes on, beats Wisconsin. Who gets in if it comes down to a 2-loss Ohio State, 1-loss Penn State?
The Big Ten gets no one in.
Ooh, I like it, Tom.
Shake up there, Tom.
Ooh, I like it, Tommy.
In that case, I assume a 1-loss ACC champion, Bama, Georgia, undefeated in 1 loss either way.
Yeah.
Notre Dame with 1 loss.
Ooh,
that's how they get in.
I think just to have that scenario, there's got to be less. Notre Dame's got to drop a game. Georgia's got to drop 2, including Alabama.
That's fair.
Like, I'm talking about if it's between 4 and 5. Like, who gets in?
The committee will find a way to get Ohio State in.
Yeah, the committee always finds a way to get high in. But is there committee revenge out there? 31-0 to Clemson. Is there revenge?
I want to believe the committee just does the best they can and don't worry about the revenge, yet I somehow doubt that.
All right.
So is it safe to say Penn State does not control their own destiny at this point, and they are praying for Ohio State to lose?
I mean, I think they probably are hoping Ohio State loses twice. I think it's super unlikely. So I think they're either praying Ohio State falls apart, which is unlikely, or they might be.
Or everyone else falls apart.
Yeah, Ohio State to dominate and have that look like such a good loss. Ohio State be smooth sailing into the playoff, and they get that number 2, and everyone else loses. So tough to say. I would say they're rooting for Ohio State at this point, in my opinion.
I agree.
Okay, next up on our not list is the TCU Horned Frogs. Yet again, Iowa State takes down another ranked team, beating the Horned Frogs 14-7.
I don't know what got into the Cyclones team, but apparently they're just the giant
they
killers
are turning
this season.
heads.
It's a shame they lost to Texas, which was a really close game. It's a shame they lost to Iowa as well.
Overtime.
I mean, if it's not for either one of those losses, I think TCU, Tom, is a top 5 team right now. I'm sorry, I think Iowa State is a top 5 team now. They beat TCU and Oklahoma. This would be the story of the year if they didn't drop one of those games.
Who else has a better
two
better wins?
No one.
Literally no one.
No one.
Not
No one
Ohio
does.
State, not Clemson, not Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get into a weigh-in here. We want you guys to comment below and predict the 4 college football playoff teams at the end of the season. James, I'm going to start with you. Who you got?
Yeah, so I'm still very in flux with this, so I don't want anybody to do a frozen cold take on me at the end of the year. So,
quote, I want someone to do a frozen cold take on me.
all right. Maybe we'll cut this one, put it out there on the podcast and the Twitter sphere. So here's what I got, Jordan. I think win or lose in the SEC title game, Alabama's in for sure for me. So Alabama is the guarantee. Ohio State is in for me. Notre Dame is in for me. And I've got Oklahoma as the last one, right? I think Oklahoma. I do think ACC against a Big 12 1-loss Oklahoma team, ACC would get shut out in that scenario. I think even a one-loss Miami, an undefeated Miami could get shut out to a 1-loss Oklahoma, maybe. But I've got those 4 teams. That's I don't see a way that Alabama, even if they lose, they don't get in. Ohio State's playing so hot right now that they're definitely in. And the question comes down to what would they do with a 1-loss Washington, a 1-loss Clemson, a 1-loss Notre Dame, a 1-loss Oklahoma. It's going to be mayhem, Tom, if there's all these 5 or 6 1-loss teams and then maybe just 1 or 2 teams at the top that everyone wants in. So that's kind of where I stand, but love to hear your 4.
Yeah, look, I think Alabama's in. I think that we'll find Clemson gets in. I'll go rogue here. Georgia gets in. SEC gets 2 schools. Notre Dame gets in.
Ooh. All right. So tell me one more time so I've got it clear.
Bama, Georgia, Clemson, Notre Dame. Big Ten gets no one.
All right, Tom. That is the boldest of predictions.
I know it's bold. I want it to be bold.
Because that's when mutiny happens. That's when 3 conference champs don't get in.
I know that's when mutiny happens.
Mutiny.
I'm Team Chaos, baby. I want everyone to get angry.
All right, you guys go ahead and make sure to get those comments in below. We want to know who you have at the end of the season, those top 4 teams in the college football playoff. So let's go ahead. We want to move on and take a look at what the top 10 could possibly look like. So at number 10, guys, we have the TCU Horned Frogs.
TCU is kind of caught in the middle here where there are 2 undefeated teams in Miami and Wisconsin. You look at the rest of the 1-loss programs. Maybe they can be above Penn State. I actually could see TCU being in the top 7 because of their win over Oklahoma State and West Virginia, but I don't know if they're going to end up being all that high in the end. My expectation is TCU ranks very low in the initial rankings because I don't know how much the TCU team is going to like it.
Does this Iowa State loss put them in complete playoff jeopardy?
Yes, it absolutely does.
Absolutely
Because
does. Okay.
now they have to win out. That's not going to be super easy. They do control their own destiny, but it's not going to be the simplest route.
All right, and moving on at number 9, we have the Wisconsin Badgers.
You know, they should be higher. They're undefeated, but they have played no one, Tom. I think they're going to get punished big time for that. And I think the team that we're going to see coming up here, and maybe our next pick, is going to be punished for that. If you don't play anybody for 2 months, you cannot realistically, unless you start the season number 1 or 2, you cannot realistically expect to be ranked really high. Wisconsin's played nobody. They're probably going to win out. Their only chance of loss I see is if they just completely sleepwalk through a game or they lose to Michigan. That's a game on the road. Michigan with a new quarterback. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Our expectation is that Michigan will not be in the top 25 because they don't have any quality wins because, you know, Florida's just been awful this year. I would not be surprised, James, if Wisconsin ends up ranking at as low as number 10 because the rest of the year, James, unless Michigan jumps back in the top 25, which is a legitimate chance, they will play no ranked teams until the end of the year.
Okay.
That's crazy.
In the Big Ten championship game.
Okay, and at number 8, they put the U in undefeated, you guys, the Miami Hurricanes.
Look, I think Miami could be a little bit higher. They've played a bunch of good, not great teams. So we'll see what ends up happening there. My expectation is that we will see Miami and Wisconsin both ranked very low.
Yeah, and they deserve to be low, Tom. They do deserve to be low because they've played nobody, and they're going to deserve to be ranked low for that. So Miami at number 8, that's where I think we project them. I think that's where they're going to be, Tom. We've got 3 minutes till we get the rankings. Potentially, we're waiting on the committee. We're at their whim at this point, but
yes.
I see Miami at 8. That's where they should be. They have every opportunity, most notably in about 12 days from now, to beat Notre Dame, who is one of the most impressive teams in the country right now.
And at number 7, we have the Penn State Nittany Lions. What do you have to make about this? Is it a little bit disrespect for Penn State ranking them at number 7?
It's that they haven't beaten anyone. What's their best win? Iowa?
Jim Harbaugh? Come on, this is still Jim Harbaugh.
Michigan?
Yeah,
it's not a great
loss,
win.
though, was only by 1 point to Ohio State.
That's true. That's a very good loss. And so we talked about this earlier, that a quality loss, Tom, is sometimes better than being even undefeated. We've seen that in the past where teams like Texas A&M in the past has been in the top 3 or 4 with a very quality loss to start the year. So I think Penn State, if I'm them, I am hoping that Ohio State runs rampant through the rest of their schedule, is an easy pick for the top 4, and that Penn State can sneak in with a few losses, that they've got a quality loss. Same thing kind of Notre Dame's working on.
All right, and at number 6, you guys, we have the Clemson Tigers with 1 loss to Syracuse.
Yeah, they've got a bad loss. They really do. So I think Clemson does not control their own destiny. I think they could be left out even if they win the ACC. So we'll see what comes of Clemson.
All right, and number 5 is Ohio State.
You know, they are 3 in the AP poll, Jordan and Tom, and I was
which is ridiculous.
So mad when I saw that because there's no way. How are these guys, Tom? How do you get a vote in the AP poll? How do you do it and still vote Ohio State ahead of Oklahoma? It makes no sense at all, and these voters should be ashamed of themselves. If I was running the AP poll, I would see who voted Ohio State ahead of Oklahoma. I would revoke their vote. I really would.
All right, and so I kind of want to talk about that a little more, Ohio State and Oklahoma. Do you see that that Oklahoma could possibly move up above Ohio State?
Well, so that's what we're projecting here, it looks like. Yeah. So Ohio State's at 5, so we're projecting Oklahoma's going to be ahead of them, even though Ohio State...
And it looks like our projections are now in Oklahoma, they're at number 4.
Yeah, so this is our projections again. These aren't the real rankings. This is what common sense leads us to, Tom. Oklahoma should be ahead of Ohio State under any possible scenario in the world, and that's, I think, how it's going to turn out.
All right, and at number 3 is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
And, you know, Tom, you kind of schooled me to this. I'm like, hey, Notre Dame's not going to be. They'll be 5-6. But then you really look about it. Who has beat more quality teams? Who has a better loss? Nobody.
Notre Dame. So yeah. I really think Notre Dame's going to be number 3 to the point that I will actually be legitimately surprised on air if that doesn't happen.
If they keep running this table, I'm sure there's more playoff chaos to happen. And at number 2, we have the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah. Look, I think there is a legitimate chance, folks, that Georgia is number 1 when the committee reveals their rankings because of that win over Notre Dame. Alabama does not have that same quality win. I know they beat Florida State, and I know that Florida State lost DeAndre Francois, but does DeAndre Francois totally change the season to where FSU is no longer a team that might not make a bowl game this year? I don't think they'd be very good anyway.
Yeah, and I guess we'll see what comes of it. I mean, obviously Alabama's number 1 in these projections at that point. So, you know, Tom, how about this scenario? We've seen crazier things. The committee's done a lot of weird things, and they always seem to get it right. Or I think there's really been very little argument outside of maybe the Pac-12 getting shafted and Penn State getting shafted last year. But is it possible the committee goes completely rogue and puts Notre Dame at 2, Alabama at 3? Is it possible?
Honestly?
Yeah.
Now that you mention it,
we haven't talked about this scenario. It just popped in my head.
This is the first time we've actually talked about this. I actually could see it because they did something a little bit similar. I think it was last year with Texas A&M, a bunch of some undefeated teams because they only lost to Alabama.
Yeah, the 5-1, 5-6-1 A&M came in at number 4, and people are like, what? That's crazy. So yeah.
I will say that there is a chance.
There's a chance, absolutely.
A legitimate chance there.
All right, and I want to go ahead and get into a reaction poll. Who do you guys think should be number 1 in the college football playoff rankings? Throw up that heart for Alabama, a wow face for Georgia, ha-ha for Wisconsin, and a thumbs up for Miami.
So why these 4 teams? So these are the only major conference teams that are undefeated right now. Alabama and Georgia in the SEC, Wisconsin in the Big Ten, who has played no one. They played a worse schedule than Miami of Ohio Redhawks, Tom. I guess the Miami Florida's played probably a worse schedule than Miami of Ohio
Miami
Redhawks
played
did.
Notre Dame.
Well, yeah,
So-
the other Miami.
Yeah, no. I mean, the Miami Redhawks played Notre Dame.
That's what I'm saying, the other Miami.
Yeah, the Redhawks have the better
Yeah,
resume.
exactly. I mean,
even though they've lost a bunch of games.
My gambling picks, Tom, the Redhawks screwed me on that. I thought they were
Yes,
going to give a better
they did.
game to Notre Dame. But Miami,
feel you
Florida, undefeated, one of the bigger surprise teams in college football right now because second year under Mark Richt, he's actually turned the program. Him and Kirby Smart, what they've done in just their second season, I think is fairly remarkable.
All right, you guys, I'm sorry to interrupt. No, sorry, not sorry, I guess I could say. At number 25, the rankings are now in Washington State at number 25. At number 24 is Michigan State, followed by Memphis, Arizona at number 22, and Stanford coming in at number 21 in our college football playoff rankings.
Yeah, so just so interesting there is Washington State, Michigan State up there. And these are not the projections anymore. We had that wrong for a second. These are the actual rankings. Memphis, Arizona, Stanford. I think we're going burning through these bad boys. But Tom, any thoughts on this first one? Ooh.
Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. We have number 20 coming in, NC State, followed by LSU and UCF, led by Scott Frost, undefeated.
No respect for UCF.
Oh, yeah.
None whatsoever. Not that I'm surprised.
And at number 17, we have USC.
That's
a little bit.
That is terrible.
I am surprised USC is that low.
Number 16 is Mississippi State.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually very surprising to me that they're almost in the top 15. That indicates to me that they love the SEC this year.
At number 15, look at that, Iowa State, who's turning some heads.
That one I get. That one I get.
Erroneous. They should be way higher.
At 14, we have Auburn.
Committee likes the SEC. Yeah. That Auburn is so high, Clemson could be very high as well.
Ooh, 13, we have Virginia Tech coming in.
Maybe dogged a little bit. I don't know, Tom. 7-1 good record, only losses against Clemson right now.
I'm not surprised at Vatek's there.
Washington at number 12.
That is actually disrespectful. The Pac-12 is getting dissed left and right. 7-1 Washington that played Alabama.
Oklahoma State is now at 11.
So, James, our top 10 teams were at least correct in terms of what the top 10 teams were.
Tom,
not that was a major surprise, I don't think.
Tom, you were ranked number 12 in the NFL mock drafts in the entire planet, or 7. What was it this year? I think you're also, if they hold 15, rankings for predicting this, our staff would probably be in the top 10 in the world as well. So, I mean, nobody gets rankings like Chat Sports does. So, interesting. I think we're waiting on the top 10, Tom. We should talk about these bad boys while the committee's making us wait a little bit. But Iowa State, Auburn, Virginia Tech, Washington, Oklahoma State. So, you know, Oklahoma State, Bedlam this weekend, that's going to sort that one out. But I want to focus on number 12 there. Washington is getting dissed. They are not talked about at all this year. They should be. They have one loss. Okay, they look terrible in that loss. And their offense was just absolutely putrid in the loss. But they were in the playoff last year, Tom. They gave Alabama probably as good as a game as anybody outside Clemson's done in the last 2 years. And they've got their quarterback returning. They've got one of the top 5 coaches in the game. I think that's the one team outside the top 10 that has an absolutely phenomenal chance of making it to the playoff.
I agree with everything you just said. I also understand why they are only 12, and it comes down to what we talked about with Wisconsin, with the Hurricanes. They have beaten nobody. That's why they're low. That's why they're behind an Oklahoma State, whose lone loss was to TCU, a top 10 team.
Let's go ahead and recap, you guys. At number 25, we have Washington State, followed by Michigan State, Memphis, Arizona, and Stanford. Entering the top 20 is NC State, LSU, UCF, USC, and Mississippi State. And to 15 is Iowa State, turns some heads, Auburn, At 14, Virginia Tech in that 13 spot, followed by Washington and Oklahoma State.
Can we go back to the inside the top 25? A team I didn't expect to be in there, Arizona.
Hey, Rich Rod.
I'm actually
And I'm
surprised.
sorry to interrupt, but number 10 is in. We have the Miami Hurricanes.
No respect.
Fake news. They
No
should
respect
be
for the
higher.
moon.
No,
Wow.
that's funny. Yeah.
I'm actually
7-0
I'm
diss.
actually surprised they're behind Wisconsin. Miami's played a better record, a better team this year.
At number 9, we have Wisconsin.
Oh my
Wow.
God, Tom, this is mutiny. This is mutiny.
I said there was a chance. The undefeated teams were 10-9.
Yeah, this is surprising, Tom. I'll tell you what. I didn't think they'd be ranked this low. I think in my initial ones, the committee, they're going to rank undefeated a little higher. But you and Brett actually talked me out of that one. You guys are proving to be much more accurate on this bad boy than I am. I am glad I succumbed to your knowledge on this one, Tom. Miami and Wisconsin. I know what this tells me, Tom. I think this tells me there's a chance that a Miami or Wisconsin undefeated team could lose out to a one loss like Notre Dame.
Tell you what, these undefeated teams are 10-9 with not great resumes this year. I will say that there is a legitimate chance that Alabama's not number 1.
Excuse me, Tom. At number 8, we have TCU.
You know, they would have a chance to be in the top 3 or 4. They lost a game to Iowa State. That was a game they had every chance to win. I mean, Iowa State shut TCU's offense down, which is very surprising. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. Their only touchdown was on a kickoff return to start the second half.
Yeah, that was
right?
all they had. Kenny Hill was brutal.
How did they get
At
that
number
one?
7, we have Penn State, you guys. Is this a little bit disrespectful?
No, that's where they
No.
should
Or
be.
is this where they,
No,
is this
that's
This
fair?
is right.
That's
This
where
is
they should
absolutely
be.
right.
All right,
So,
this is fair.
We're into the top 6 here in a second, guys, and I think we're probably going to pause. You know the committee likes to make us wait.
They do.
I've got
Let's
the
have a
earpiece in. They're going to tell me when it's ready, okay? So
We have to wait.
So, Tom, let's talk about who we know is the top 6, right? So,
Yeah.
certainly Alabama, certainly Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. Who am I missing? Clemson.
The
Okay.
6 we had in some order.
The 6 we had in some order. So we're looking pretty damn good right now. That article about Brian Ralph is turned into real news.
Do you know what else looks pretty damn good?
I think it's Man Crates.
Oh, Man Crate. Get one today at mancrates.com/chatsports. If you're a guy, or if you know a guy who needs an awesome gift, you got to give him a Man Crate. The college football barware or college sports barware, fantastic.
Tom,
gift.
somebody did me a favor recently. They hooked me up with something they didn't have to. You know what I'm doing for them? Man Crate. I know what NFL team they like. It's going to be a surprise. They're going to get this box of testosterone, Tom, which is the Man Crate. It's a wooden crate filled with awesome stuff for dudes, so it's phenomenal. I love Man Crates. Mancrates.com/chatsports. Get a barware for any college football team, NFL, any assortment of gifts. They have all kinds of gifts. You just press a button, and a package of gifts goes to a guy for a really low price. So
Making
sounds
us
awesome.
ladies' life so much easier.
I don't understand
It's
that.
unbelievable.
It's not that hard to shop
You
for
can't
us.
even argue
I just
about
say
it.
this
one out there. I've got $1 billion idea right here. We might want to start it right now. Woman crates? Wouldn't that make your life easy?
Yeah,
All right, that
because
would-
I hate shopping
There
for
you
you
go.
people.
It
would
goes both ways,
I
you
would just
guys.
press a button and buy woman crates once a month and just take care of
Call it
business.
a day.
So Man Crates is really the best thing that ever
The
happened to
best
women.
way to go, for sure. All right, you guys, before we get the top 6 released to us, I want to ask you guys who you have at that number 1 spot. It is clear it might be Georgia or Alabama, but is the committee looking at these resumes side by side, and what is that value of the Florida State game at this point? It seems as it's diminished
I'm
extremely.
actually super curious what
Yeah.
we'll see.
It doesn't matter at all, except for the purpose of this show and us to talk about for the next 5 days. But, and I'm kind of interested in what are we going to do, Tom. Are the committee going to give us number 1 first? They're going to give us number 6 first? I don't know. But I think it's going to be Alabama because of what I told you, Jordan, earlier, reputation purpose, right? They've been number 1 in the AP poll. Now, this is the first committee ranking. I think Alabama is just your default number 1 in these things if they're undefeated. But if the committee literally put a blind resume test up, Tom, Georgia would be number 1. It's the Alabama brand name that's going to get them number 1 if that's the case in this reveal.
I think that's pretty accurate. I'm curious to see what ends up happening. Again, we're waiting for the committee to send us word here. In the interim, you guys want to go through the top 25 here one more time?
Absolutely.
I do. Let's go ahead and roll it. At number 25, we have Washington State, followed by Michigan State, Memphis at that 23 spot, Arizona, Stanford, and at 20, we have NC State, followed by LSU, UCF, USC, Mississippi State. Entering the top 15 is Iowa State, Auburn, Virginia Tech, Washington, and Oklahoma State. Into the top 10 is Miami, followed by Wisconsin, TCU, and Penn State.
I want to modify my original projections, James, after I took another look at that.
Yep.
Clemson has 2 top 15 wins.
Ooh.
Who else has that?
Notre Dame? Well, not top 15 right now.
Now
but
with NC State out there.
Yeah, so I think, Tom, it sounds like the rankings are just about to come in. We are in Dallas.
And
so
it looks like we're going to pop
Whoa!
to number 1 first with Georgia.
We warned them.
Yeah,
We
nice.
warned you guys.
Okay, you
That
guys.
is amazing.
That is going to
All
rile up the
right, and
comment
at number
section.
2 is Alabama.
Okay, so let's go ruffle some feathers. Alabama fans, we should get a pinned comment on this bad boy. Alabama fans got to feel dissed.
And at number 3 is
we
Notre
got it.
Dame.
We were right
Got
again.
it right.
Yes, that's really interesting, Tom.
So the top 3 I'm not really surprised by.
Let's see what happens here.
4, 5, 6.
If it's Ohio State, I'm going to freak out right now. Let's see who they've got number 4. We're still waiting to hear from the
Someone might
committee.
be jumping through the window.
So we
soon.
warned everyone about Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah.
I think when you ignore the team name,
Yeah.
Georgia's resume
Yeah.
is better.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that Georgia's a better team. I'm saying that what they've done this year, they beat the number 3 team at the number 3 team's house.
Yeah, but
That's a
by the
huge
way,
win.
with a true freshman quarterback.
At that Final Four spot, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Okay.
is Clemson, you guys.
I can live with it. The
Okay.
committee.
You can.
We
Okay.
warned you. I warned you with Alabama, with Auburn and Vatech being so high.
Yeah, Clemson, I like it. This is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets interesting.
And at
okay.
number
All right, they got it right.
I got it right.
Oklahoma.
All right.
And at that number 6 spot must be
Ohio
Ohio
State.
State.
Now-
Tom, I have faith in the committee.
This is fine. I would prefer to have Oklahoma above Clemson, but I'm not upset by it. Also, all y'all in the comment section on Sunday that told me no way Oklahoma was going to be ahead of Ohio State. Well, what do you think now?
Where are you at?
I'm
I wish
glad
the
the
camera
committee
was
used
on,
their
Tom,
brains.
because that was the best face you've ever made in your entire life. I'm sure we've got that recorded somewhere. We're going to make that into a GIF.
Good.
Yeah, so,
Good.
I mean, Tom, let's talk about this for a second. Georgia, Alabama. What I think this signals to me, and I don't know, I just didn't think this was that possible until actually we started talking about it in this show. But what this signals to me, Tom, is that the SEC is getting 2 teams in. That's what it signals to me, because Alabama and their brand name recognition, they are not going to get blown out by Georgia and follow the top 4, okay? So if Alabama loses to Georgia, Georgia stays in. I don't think Alabama drops out of the top 4 at that point, and they don't drop number 1 down to number 5 from a loss to number 2. So Georgia, if they stay number 1, if they keep impressing for 4 more games, Georgia, even if they lose to Alabama, as long as it's not by more than 2 touchdowns, Tom, Georgia, I believe, stays into the top 4 no matter what happens. So I think the SEC is getting 2 teams in no matter what happens, as long as one of these 2 teams does not drop a game before they play in the SEC championship game 5 weeks from now. So 1 Georgia, 2 Alabama, 3 Notre Dame, 4 Clemson, Oklahoma at 5. And Tom, we don't have to break stuff tonight. The insurance company that covers the studio does not have to come up with a check in the mail to cover the damage. So Ohio State at 6. They got it right, I think.
Okay, and for those of you just joining us, we want to go ahead and go through the top 25 playoff rankings for you guys. So we're going to go ahead and get those up on screen. At number 25, we have Washington State, followed by Michigan State, Memphis, Arizona, and Stanford. And at number 20 is NC State, LSU, UCF, USC, and Mississippi State entering. The top 15 is Iowa State, followed by Auburn, Virginia Tech, Washington, and Oklahoma State. Into the top 10 is Miami, Wisconsin, TCU, and Penn State at that number 7 spot. And jumping into the top 6 is Ohio State, followed by Oklahoma. And in that top 4 is Clemson, Notre Dame at number 3, Alabama in that number 2 spot, and Georgia at number 1, you guys.
You know, Tom, I just can't see. I'm thinking every scenario in my head. If Georgia, Alabama play undefeated and that game was within 10 points, both those teams make the playoffs, and they don't have a rematch either. The loser drops to number 3. I don't think the loser drops out of the top 5, because if you're thinking about this, a Georgia team that loses, if they go head-to-head against Notre Dame, they're not going to drop them below Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's already 3. An Alabama team that loses to number 1 Georgia, they're not going to drop out of the top 4. There's no way. I think if these 2 teams take care of business, they both have a cupcake game, I think it's Georgia and Alabama making the college football playoff. We'll have 2 teams from one conference in it the first time ever.
I just want to point out the SEC teams in general being ranked very high. Auburn was a top 15 team. That, frankly, is one of the bigger surprises to me.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't think they were going to be 14. I'm surprised that they're that high. Mississippi State was ranked significantly higher than they were in the AP poll. I'm maybe not upset. LSU is in the top 20 as well. That's a lot of SEC teams in the mix there.
Yeah,
that bodes well.
It certainly is. So, I mean, It's certainly clear that the SEC is seen as higher than I thought they were, than you thought they were. I think the Big Ten is getting dissed a little bit. I think an undefeated Wisconsin being ranked where they at, that's disrespect, baby. That's disrespect. I do think there's a possibility, Tom, that a one-loss team would make the playoff over a zero-loss or an undefeated Wisconsin or Miami. I think it's possible.
Okay, and for those of you just joining us, we're going to go ahead and roll through the college football playoff rankings. Starting at number 25 is Washington State, followed by Michigan State, Memphis, Arizona, Stanford. At number 20 is NC State, followed by LSU, UCF, USC, Mississippi State. And into the top 15 is Iowa State, Auburn, Virginia Tech, Washington, Oklahoma State. And as we enter the top 10 is Miami, followed by Wisconsin, TCU, and Penn State at that number 7 spot. At number 6 is Ohio State, followed by Oklahoma. And entering the top 4 is Clemson, followed by Notre Dame, Alabama in that number 2 spot. And at number 1 is Georgia.
Yeah, it's going to be wild how it plays out. I mean, I think this thing is just going to go I mean, every week going forward, I think we've got a game where one of these teams is going to be out of this top 10, right? One of the top 10 teams will lose. I think teams like Washington and Oklahoma State in the top 11, 12 have every chance to get in this top 3 or 4, 4 or 5 in the next few weeks.
And we want to go ahead and get into a weigh-in. We want to know who you guys think will win the SEC. So make sure to get your comments in below. James, I'm going to start with you. Who you got?
Well, Jordan, you and I in show prep talked about this a little bit. I'm going to steal your thunder here because I have nothing better to say than this at this point. So let me throw a stat out. So Nick Saban has faced former assistants, which Kirby Smart is his defensive coordinator for, I believe, 7 or 8 straight seasons and multiple national titles.
That's impressive.
That is very impressive that he stuck around that long, I think is what you're alluding to. Kirby Smart is a very young man, and I am super impressed how fast he's gotten Georgia turned around. Number 2 in the country, have every chance to make it to the SEC title game undefeated. But guys like Jimbo Fisher and many others have tried and failed against their ex-assistant, head coach in Nick Saban. He is 11-0, Tom and Jordan, versus ex-assistants in his career with an average margin of victory of 32 points. And these aren't schmuck programs. These are programs like Florida State, Tom.
Damn.
So he crushes, he murders, he annihilates. He crushed Jim McElwain, a former assistant. He gets destroyed. So Nick Saban shows no mercy.
So, James, you're saying if Georgia...
Oh, it's Alabama for sure. It's no question in my mind. I think he's gonna send them back into the the 1930s. He's just gonna crush Georgia. I don't have a good analogy for that one, but Alabama is going to beat Georgia 42-10.
All right, and Tom,
Georgia has a freshman quarterback, true freshman by the name of Jake Fromm. He has thrown from State Farm.
Yeah,
yes,
I was gonna say I was throwing that.
Jake Fromm, State Farm. He has thrown 15 plus, meaning more than 15. Passes twice this year. They have not asked Jake Fromm to make plays. When they kind of did, the closest it came was against Notre Dame, the 1-point win on the road. Fromm was 16 of 29 for just 141 yards and 55% completion percentage. The Notre Dame defense is nowhere near as good as Alabama. Georgia can win with Jake Fromm, but they cannot. But Jake Fromm, I don't think, can beat Bama.
No.
You need to have a quarterback that can do that. I don't think Fromm is there yet.
Absolutely.
Okay, you guys, let's go ahead and get into the top college football playoff impact games going on this week. First up, we have number 7, Penn State at number 24, Michigan State.
Are they on upset alert, James? Penn State coming off that heartbreaking loss.
So what does upset alert actually mean? I've never got a definition of upset alert, but I think there's that many definitions.
Generally declaring a team could be upset even if they are actually the underdogs to begin with.
What's the difference between upset alert and trap game? I don't know. I have no idea.
Trap game is because there is no difference.
Yeah, okay.
It's all the same.
It's all the same stuff. So let's talk about this bad boy. This is an interesting one. These two teams, the Big Ten's tried to make them rivals, which they're really not. Penn State calls themselves unrivaled for a reason, but it's at Michigan State, Tom. This is a better Michigan State team than anybody expected, I think, this year after going 3-9 last year. It's a noon game. It's on Fox, which isn't really a good experience watching the game, but I think they are on upset alert because I think Michigan State is not last year's Michigan State. They're more like 2010 Michigan State that goes 10-2 and wins games like this. So I do think they're on upset alert. If I had to make a pick, I'd say Penn State pulls it out, but the Michigan State defense is not going to get fooled like Michigan's did. They're going to look more like Ohio State's defense last week. I say they shut down Saquon Barkley, and it's going to be in Trace McSorley's hand to win another big game on the road, and he just proved this past weekend that didn't happen when he had the opportunity to.
The next impact game we have coming up this weekend is number 4 Clemson at number 20, NC State. Tom, is this going to be a huge test for the Tigers?
I think it absolutely is. I think this NC State team with a very good defense, some talented offensive players, I think they're going to give Clemson a real game. In part, and in large part really, remember folks, this is a home game for NC State. And I'm going to take it one step further here. Some big J journalism here for you, James.
Here we go.
NC State beat Louisville, the upset game no one really saw coming. Do you know what the moon was that day?
The moon?
The moon.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
The moon, like the big thing in the sky you see at night.
It was full.
It was a full moon.
Okay.
For the Wolf Pack.
Okay.
Wolves help moon, James. Do you know what the moon's going to be for the Clemson game?
I have no idea.
It's a full moon, baby.
Full moon? Okay.
The Wolf Pack pay better under a full moon.
Oh.
Don't be surprised if they knock off Clemson.
All right, well, I'm going to go the opposite one this time. I think NC State got exposed. Notre Dame showed them who they really were. I don't think they're even a top 20 team. I think Clemson rolls in this one. Something like, the same score as Notre Dame, 35-14 Clemson.
Next impact game we have, you guys, is number 5 Oklahoma at number 11 Oklahoma State. You guys, are we sleeping on the Cowboys?
This is a little bit of bedlam here. That's what they call the rivalry, and it's for a reason, Tom. This one is always fun. I mean, I think back to Les Miles' early days at Oklahoma State where he pulled off that victory. Oklahoma State beat an undefeated Oklahoma, number 1 ranked Oklahoma. This one's always fun. They've got 2 of the best 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the country, maybe the best 2, depending on how this season plays out and how they perform. But I expect this one to be a 45-42 game that everybody's talking about after this weekend. I think this is the game of the weekend for sure.
I could not agree more. This is going to be a fantastic game. I know 2 things about Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley. 1, they play close games.
Yeah.
2, they beat good teams.
They absolutely do. I mean,
At least teams that we know are good entering the game.
He had a more impressive victory in his first month as coach than Big Game Bob did in the last 5 years when he went to Columbus and beat Ohio State. So, Tom, really quick, if I said over under 800 passing yards in this game, what do you got?
I will take the over. Oklahoma's pass defense is hot garbage. Rudolph throws for 500 plus.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield throws for 400.
Yeah, I was thinking
wins.
over. I'm like, wow, somebody's got 470, the other's going to have 425. It's going to be crazy.
Right. That's a massive number. We're like, oh yeah, over, easy. Welcome to the Big 12 defense, folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, you guys, the next impact game coming up is LSU, number 19 LSU at number 2 Alabama. You guys, Auburn lost to LSU, who is a good football team, and Bama is now coming off a bye week. Is this going to be an upset alert, or, Tom, you're shaking your head.
You guys can't see me on air. I got a puzzled look on my face. I don't believe in LSU.
Tom,
LSU couldn't beat them last year with Leonard Fournette. They're going to beat them with a lesser halfback and Darius Guice if they look so bad at times this year. Their passing offense somehow got worse.
Tom, this matchup of coaches, you could not get a more lopsided matchup of head coaches if you tried in college football. I think Nick Saban is it's not even the same galaxy. Ed Orgeron, by the way, is not a head coach. He's a motivational guy. I've got actually a little bit of theory on Ed Orgeron, Tom.
Yeah?
When the going gets good, he gets bad. When the going gets bad, which what usually happens when he's an interim coach, he's got a little bit of record. I think he's got a better winning percentage as an interim coach than he does as a regular coach. We all know that. And I think after they lost to Troy, that was interim coach style coaching because usually, you lose to Troy, the coach usually gets fired. You bring in the interim, right? That was his interim game. The interim buzz is worn off. It's 3 games later. They're going to get murdered by Alabama.
I agree.
Next up on our impact game is number 13 Virginia Tech visiting number 10 Miami. You guys,
this weekend is unbelievable.
This is a great weekend of college football. I am so excited.
There's going to be some chaos happening.
Look at all these ranked matchups we have. 5 of them.
Yeah, this is unbelievable. I mean, for as many bad, I feel like there needs to be a commissioner of college football. I will throw my hat in the ring of it. I'll throw my hat in the ring. It probably should be I don't know who it would be, but
let me think for a second.
Yeah, I don't want to name guys at other networks by any means, so we're not going to do that. We're not going to go network, but Tom might have one here.
I got it.
Okay, who?
Old ball coach.
That'd be a great one. It'd be phenomenal.
The old ball coach, Steve Spurrier, does it.
Well, the question is, does he have sanctions? I was going to say Jim Tressel, but Jim Tressel. Yeah, he has too many.
It's Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, Steve Spurrier. That's a good one. I'm not sure if I've got a better one at this point. Maybe Bobby Bowden. Just because dadgum when he Bobby Bowden, right? So, this is a phenomenal weekend, Tom. I wish they would have a commissioner of college football and spread these games out a little bit more because there's no games. Like every other weekend, there's just nothing going on. Then we get this. This is college football palooza. This is the best weekend I've seen in a decade.
All right, let's go ahead and take it to a reaction poll now. Who has been the least impressive top 10 team? You guys throw up those reactions. Give me a heart for Miami, a wow face for Wisconsin, and a ha-ha for TCU. Who you got, Tom?
It's kind of splitting hairs here, I think, to be fair, because these are top 10 teams. I'll be honest, I think it's the Miami Hurricanes.
I agree with you.
They've beaten some decent teams, but all these games have been close, narrow wins against lesser teams.
Yeah, I would go with, let me think this. I want to keep this graphic up on the screen for a few minutes because I want to see what people react across the screen because, Tom, I don't know if there's a great answer because all these teams, TCU losing that game last week where they did absolutely nothing on offense, it's probably them, but I got to go with Miami of Florida because there's been so many close games. They should have lost maybe 2 or 3 games. And Wisconsin has they've at least won convincingly some of the games, although they've had closer games than I expected in the last few weeks. So I would probably say it's got to be Miami, Florida. I think the reckoning is coming, and that is coming in 12 days from now when Notre Dame takes them back to Catholics versus Convicts Day from the late 80s.
Baby.
And they turn Miami, they're going to put Miami into a prison or something. They're going to whip them with the stick, whatever the priest does to the bad kid. That's what they're doing. Yeah.
All right, so make sure you guys are throwing up those reactions. We want to know who has been the least impressive top 10 team. Give us a heart for Miami, a wow face for Wisconsin, a ha-ha for TCU, and a thumbs up for someone else. You guys, you don't want to know what is impressive? Man crates.
Ooh, look at that.
Yeah, I know. That was a great transition, wasn't it? Go ahead and tell us how awesome Man Crates is.
If you guys know an awesome guy who needs a gift, a dad, a brother, husband, whatever, get him a Man Crate at mancrates.com/chatsports. The college sports barware, James, fantastic.
You know what the most awkward thing is a dude is trying to buy another dude a present, which I don't know what if you were, but
it's just a little weird.
Just a little weird.
Like it's like a jersey or like what else do you get them?
Yeah, example of dude on dude gifts, bachelor parties or groomsmen, right? You get married, you got 4, 5, 6 groomsmen. What do you get him? I had no idea. I had to get him I had to get him like etch-a-sketch like wooden plaques of their favorite football team and some like American flag shorts. Literally, that's what I got him. Like I had no idea. Cool. If I would have known about Man Crates then, they would have all gotten Man Crates, maybe multiple Man Crates. I press button, they get a crate of testosterone. It's barware, jerky, all this kind of stuff. Candy you can get, whatever you want. It's amazing. I love Man Crates.
And it's perfectly curated for their interests.
Yeah, you kind of just tell them what they like. They put together this awesome box of stuff. It comes in a wooden crate, Tom. You got a bar, Jimmy this thing open with a crowbar. It's amazing. Mancrates.com/chatsports.
Making us ladies' life so much easier when shopping for these guys. We want to go ahead and wrap up, or go ahead and recap our top 25 playoff rankings, you guys. At number 25, we have Washington State, followed by Michigan State, Memphis, Arizona, and Stanford. At number 20 is NC State, followed by LSU, UCF, USC, and Mississippi State. Into the top 15 is Iowa State, followed by Auburn, Virginia Tech, Washington, and Oklahoma State. Entering the top 10 now is Miami, Wisconsin, TCU, Penn State at that number 7 spot. And as we move into the top 6 is Ohio State and Oklahoma at number 5. At number 4 is Clemson, followed by Notre Dame at number 3. And the number 2 spot is Alabama, and number 1, Georgia.
It's a heck of a top 6, Tom. I think it's the exact ones we predicted, but we missed it a little bit in the order. Georgia's number 1. We didn't have that. We did have Notre Dame number 3. And I thank the committee's lucky stars that they put Oklahoma ahead of Ohio State because they would have lost credibility in my eyes if they would not have.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So, I mean, this thing's going to play out really interesting, Tom. So Georgia, Alabama, that's going to play itself out for number 1. But what do you do with number 2 in that situation, the team who loses that game?
I think it depends on what else happens, but let's say Notre Dame runs the table. Let's say Clemson finishes with 1 loss or 2 loss, something along those lines. If Georgia finishes the year with 1 loss, we'll call it a close loss to Alabama, and they beat Notre Dame in South Bend, I don't know how you could have Georgia behind Notre Dame, and with what Notre Dame did to the ACC, they're already ahead of Clemson. At that point, I think Georgia, Bama, Notre Dame are all in.
Yeah.
You're looking at Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State. You're getting 2 SEC teams in, an independent team, and only 1 other conference, if that's what ends up happening, James. And the conferences are not going to like that.
Tom, that would be mutiny. It really would.
And speaking of conferences, guys, I want to talk about the Big Ten. Who is going to win it? Do we have Ohio State, Penn State, or Wisconsin?
Yes, it's pretty interesting. I think it's Ohio State. I just can't see Wisconsin beating them. I don't see any circumstance where they go to a neutral field, Ohio State's rolling, and Wisconsin beats them. I don't see any way possible. And I don't see any way Penn State gets in because Ohio State's not dropping 2 games, which would need to happen for Penn State to jump back into the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah, so we want to know who you guys think will win the Big Ten. Throw up those reactions. Give us a heart for Ohio State, a wow face for Wisconsin, and a ha-ha for Penn State. Tom?
I want to point this out. I think the committee's first rankings were the worst case scenario for Ohio State and the Big Ten in general.
Yeah.
Not only are they behind Oklahoma, the head-to-head win clearly matters. I mean, OSU didn't have a great schedule the rest of the way. They got the big win over Penn State. They're behind the ACC too.
Yep.
If Clemson wins out, I don't see how a Big Ten team gets in unless Georgia and Notre Dame both fall apart. So the Big Ten right now is not happy because they are facing the serious possibility of having a one-loss conference champion and not getting in. And with Wisconsin so low, undefeated or not, if Michigan doesn't end up kind of rebounding with Brandon Peters at quarterback, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
They are in major trouble.
Let me ask you this question on the Big 12, Big 10 kind of debate. If Oklahoma State routs Oklahoma this weekend, do they jump Ohio State at some point this season? A one-loss Oklahoma State?
If Oklahoma State utterly destroys Oklahoma, yeah, I think so.
I think so too.
I mean, I think it's the transitive property that we've talked about.
Okay, you guys.
Ohio State, Oklahoma State.
Yep.
There you go. All right, I want to move on, and I want to get into our blind resume test. We have broken down this for 2 groups of teams by their wins versus top 10 teams, their record against top 25, their road record, and their strength of schedule. So, guys, is there anything here that stands out to you right now?
I want to preface this by pointing out we don't have their losses, so that's where things can get a little bit tricky in there in terms of the blind resume, but that makes it fun,
Well,
too.
except
does make
we
it
got
fun.
a loss for that team number 3.
Team
Team
3,
number
okay,
4
so
is a
team
loss
4,
in there.
okay, so team
Not
3,
their total losses, but
I
we
lied.
figured out kind of.
All right. All right, well, let's see here. Well, I'll be honest, Team 2, the strength of schedule is not great.
Yeah, strength of schedule is pretty brutal for
And
Team 2.
Team 1, assuming they have no losses,
Yeah.
far and away.
I want to know
Far and
what
away.
team this far in the season only has 2 road games. That seems preposterous to me, but that means they've got to play at least 2 more down the stretch, so those could be roadblocks, Tom. And then Team 4, okay, 1 loss on the road, but the 5th best strength of schedule. I think based on that, it's got to be a team that kind of jumped up. I would say that's got to be either well, I guess it couldn't be Notre Dame because they didn't lose on the road. They lost at home. So that seems to me that might be a Clemson, Tom, with that 5th best strength of schedule. We know the quality wins they have in Auburn, in Louisville, and Virginia Tech. That's got to be the number 5 strength of schedule.
Team 4 got to be Clemson. I think Team 3 has got to be Notre Dame because they have the top 25 loss.
Yeah.
Or, could be Ohio State. But I don't think it is because of the top 25
Well,
marks.
guys,
Could
let's
be
go
Penn State.
ahead. Let's go ahead and reveal those. And there you go. We have Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, like you said, and Clemson.
Okay, so this is just the top 4. Okay, they tricked us a little bit, Tom. I think we got Clemson right. We're looking at Notre Dame, but funny that Georgia is the only team out of this that has a top 10 win. This is going to play itself out. So many of these top 12 or 13 teams, Tom, play each other over the next few weeks that this thing's going to shake itself out. But I see now why Clemson is number 4 over Ohio State, over Oklahoma, over Penn State, even though I didn't really think they'd be in the top 4, because they have the 5th best strength of schedule, Tom. Their only loss, although kind of a weird one on a Friday night to Syracuse, they've got a phenomenal strength of schedule, and they have probably, if you think about your top 3 wins, I don't know if anybody's got a better top 3, at least at the time, than Clemson does.
Look, I will point this out after doing the blind test. Georgia, very clearly, based only on what they've done this year, should be number 1. Now, I will point this out with Florida State. That's the issue. Because how do you properly evaluate Florida State?
Yeah.
Do you view them as a team that was top 3 at the time? And again, folks, the record versus top 25 is what they currently stand. Because what's the point of making it, Alabama beat a top 3 team?
Yeah.
Like, it depends on when they played them, more or less. And it's not fair to, like, a team that beats Tennessee. That would have been a top 25 win. They are clearly not a top 25 team.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, I want to get into the next group, so let's bring that up on screen. Anything here? Look at Team 2. What do you have to say about
I'll say this. I hope the creative geniuses in chat sports didn't do 5 through 8 here, because that would make this a little bit easy. So I'm hoping that's not the case.
I'm pretty sure it's not, because I'm looking at strength of schedule at Team 1.
Oh,
they are garbage. Get them out of here.
So that's got to be Miami, or it's got to be Wisconsin.
Miami or Wisconsin,
right?
one of the two.
So road record against top 25. So we see some losses here, but man, that number, that team 3, that team 3 is looking pretty good, Tom. Top 10 win, 2-1 versus the top 25, 3-1 on the road. So they only lost 1 game was on the road. Not a great strength of schedule, but compared to the rest of these teams, not an outlier. I mean, I would say they're right in that general assessment. I like Team 3. If you're asking me what Team 3 is, I say if they stack up against these other teams with losses, Tom, Team 3 has a chance to get in the college football playoff. I don't know where they're at, but I like Team 3 on this list. I like Team 3 a lot on this list. I'm not sure about you.
We'll keep them. We'll get to these in a minute here. Team 2, I like the strength of schedule. I'm disappointed to not have that high quality win.
Yeah, I mean, Team 1. What do they do? What is Team 1 all about? That team, it's clearly they don't play anybody, and I think it's Wisconsin, because it couldn't be anybody else if we're talking about teams that are in the top 10 or 12 in this college football ranking. So I want to see who these teams are, but that Team 1 is terrible. They shouldn't even be in this conversation.
Okay, let's go ahead and reveal those teams. Pull them up on screen. There you go. Wisconsin. You said Miami or Wisconsin.
Wisconsin's a fraud. They're a fraud.
That's a little harsh now, Tom.
No, they're a fraud.
Oh, okay.
I don't believe them.
I
James?
think they are a fraud, although last year they were pretty good. I mean, they really had a good season last year, and I'm their coach is another guy I'm just really impressed with what he's done in 2 or 3. This is his 3rd year now at Wisconsin. So looking at this, it's clear that that was Wisconsin, and it's clear that the committee does not care. If you beat garbage, your ranking in the college football will reflect that, and that's why Ohio State with 1 loss, TCU, Penn State with a loss are all ahead of that Wisconsin team. It's because strength of schedule, so it's kind of what I see.
All right, and let's go ahead and get into a reaction poll. Which conference is most likely to get 2 teams into the playoff? So throw up the heart for SEC, a wow face for the Big Ten, a ha-ha for the ACC, and a sad face for none. Guys, I'm throwing up the heart. I have confidence in the Georgia Bulldogs and Bama.
I think it's the SEC. I think there's a pretty good chance. I saw a lot of angry commenters. A friend of the show, Richard Allen Harris, was upset, said it was disrespectful to the Pac-12. They have no wins. Like, you're doing this on blind resumes. If you were to do Washington State, if you do a blind resume of the Huskies and Virginia Tech looks better.
The Pac-12 has had so many, and I'll have to answer this question in a second, but because we took that question, the Pac-12 is so disappointing this year because Oregon looked really good at the beginning of the year. They've fallen off a little bit. Stanford's lost to San Diego State. USC got blown out by Notre Dame. I mean, if you're asking me who the most impressive team in the Pac-12 is, it's Arizona lately and how they've played. I mean, they haven't had a huge win, but they're going to get every opportunity to get that big win. So it's the SEC. It's clearly the SEC. But I wonder, Tom, if the committee will make it up to Penn State in some way. And if all things were equal, if Penn State would jump another 1-loss team, even another 1-loss conference champion, to get into the playoff as not a Big Ten champion to make up for last year.
All right, folks, once again, today's show is brought to you by Man Crates. If you know a guy who needs an awesome gift, be it a dad, a brother, husband, cousin, whatever, get him a Man Crate. Mancrates.com. James, the college barware, the jerky grams, we've had those. That's delicious, man. Some gator jerky?
I saw their candy
the gator
one
jerky.
time. I have a sweet tooth. You give me a man crate of all the candy. It's not like candy you get at CVS, some of that. It's candy you get at the movies. It's the good candy. Yeah, it's the good stuff. So mancrates.com/chatsports.
Not the knockoff gummy bears.
The only place to buy gifts for dudes this holiday season.
Totally good.
For those of you just joining us, we're going to go ahead and roll through the college football playoff rankings. Right now, at number 25, we have Washington State. At number 24, Michigan State, followed by Memphis, Arizona, and Stanford. And at that...
So this is kind of the Pac-12 portion of the segment here, with Washington State, Arizona, and Stanford all in there. I don't think it bodes super well for the Pac-12 to get in with 3 teams just inside the top 25. Once they lose another game, they're out, and then they got to try and claw their way back in.
Tom, what do you think about Michigan State there at number 24?
I think it's fair.
Yeah.
I think it's about the right spot.
I mean, it doesn't really matter because there's no way Michigan State will get into the top 4. But I always wonder, kind of like, they lost to Northwestern. Like, why is Michigan State? Why is Washington State? I do feel like they would beat Arizona. I don't know. I just kind of feel sometimes the committee hurts teams too much for losses.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think what this matters is not for where the team's ranked, but for who they lost to, who they beat.
We saw USC. We saw USC and North Carolina State in the top 10. Both those teams got ran by Notre Dame. I know it's a good Notre Dame, but it's not like Michigan State. They lost to a Notre Dame also, but then they lost to Northwestern in triple overtime. So I think Michigan State's losses are better than USC's or NC State's losses.
What about Stanford? Are they being a little generous?
Look, it looked better when San Diego State was actually doing well. They've kind of struggled a little bit since then. I think the Stanford hype, I thought they could have been docked for how bad they looked against Oregon State. When they didn't have Bryce Love, that team was just not good.
Yeah, they were brutal to watch last Friday. They had to have a miracle catch on 4th and 10 just to even not lose to Oregon State, who, by the way, could be the worst team in Power 5.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and jump in. Let's go ahead and jump into our next group of 5. At number 20, we have NC State, followed by LSU, UCF, USC, and Mississippi State.
I am very surprised to see Mississippi State almost a top 15 team, James.
I mean, where did this team come from? And I'll tell you what, Dan Mullins, Tom, he might be in the mix for another job. So I want to know, does that little rumor, is that rumor mill, does he have to put that to bed? Does he have to come out like Les Miles did multiple times on the Michigan job?
I'm not interested.
Like, I'm not interested in this job. I'm taking myself. I ain't talking to nobody from Florida. Does he ever do that? Is it a distraction from the team? But if not, this Mississippi State team, they can make some noise. They've got a lot of big games coming up, Tom. I like to see that.
I think about it here. Mississippi State's lone losses at Georgia, at Auburn, both teams that are in the top 15 right now. They beat LSU. They went on the road, pounded A&M. They have a win over a Kentucky team that's going to go to a bowl game and could finish second in the SEC East, believe it or not. So I can kind of understand it, but...
When's Alabama play them?
November 11th.
Oh, okay.
Home game for Mississippi State.
So a week from Saturday, Tom.
Now that they're going to win.
That could be the upset alert for Alabama. I could see Mississippi State. It's in Starkville, right?
Yes.
I don't know. That might be one that Alabama drops. I don't know.
Okay, you guys, let's go ahead and move on. At number 15, we have Iowa State, followed by Auburn, Virginia Tech, Washington, and Oklahoma State.
I want to start with Virginia Tech. I think this is a Hokies team that frankly has kind of been a little bit disrespected. I think that they should be above Washington. I like the Huskies. I think they're a good team. I think they're probably better than Virginia Tech overall, but you got to look at what they've done this year.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech beat West Virginia. That's a better win than Washington has this year. That was a former top 25 team and a team I think at the end of the year will be in the top 25.
Yeah, they'll be back in the top 25. Now, I got to point to Washington. They're getting, this is basically like if they were undefeated, they'd be where Washington, where Wisconsin and Miami were.
Yes, they would be.
And that is, I get that, and I get the reasons why, but I also look at their coach. I always think college football sometimes, it's really about coach, quarterback, and defense, right? Like that's the recipe for championships. And I don't know if you've got more than 4 better combinations of coach, quarterback, and defense than Washington has. So if any team can make it out of the top 10, make it into the top 4 by the end of the year, I think it's Washington. I mean, Oklahoma State certainly has the opportunity, but they've got a lot of tough games coming up.
I'll point this out with Washington. I think the community did them a favor by having them in the top 12. I thought that they should have been 13. Look at who they've beaten this year. Rutgers. Come on. Montana. Fresno State. Colorado's not last year's Colorado. Oregon State, Cal, and UCLA. Those are their wins this year. They haven't beat anyone.
Yeah, I mean, UCLA, God, what happened to that program? Brutal. This week they're playing Oregon. No one on the East Coast is going to see it because it's Pac-12 after dark. So it's certainly going to be an amazing game, but no one will watch it. But I think this team, Tom, Washington beats Oregon this week at home. I think the road to the playoff is pretty cut and dry. I know you're going to say the Pac-12 is going to get left out. I still think Washington is going to get the benefit of the doubt from the committee because how well they did last year. I know it's a new year, but I do think there's those biases built in.
I understand that, and I kind of hope that's the case. I think this is a good Huskies team. I think they had one bad game against Arizona State. The rest of the season schedule, Oregon at Stanford would be a nice win, but if Stanford loses to Washington and they lose to Notre Dame,
yeah, that's a 4-loss Stanford team.
Then it's a not top 25 Stanford team.
Yeah.
Utah's fallen apart lately, and Washington State, which could have been a college football playoff play-in game to an extent because Washington State was really, really good this year. The Cougars have fallen apart. There's a good chance that by the end of the year, the Huskies, James, have 0 top 25 wins. And if that's the case, if there are other 1-loss or even a potential 2-loss conference champion or a team with 1 loss that didn't win the champion, kind of like SEC, I I don't think that the Huskies are going to get in.
And
that's a little unfair, but...
Now, could their loss, though, to Arizona State be forgiven if they continue to run the table?
No, because they're not going to play anyone. And so, unfortunately, I think fair or not, the Huskies are out of luck. Like, they need help. They need Notre Dame to fall apart. They need Georgia to have at least 2 losses. They need Stanford and Washington State to win the rest of their games. They need whoever they play in the Pac-12 championship game to be very good as well. Yeah. So they need USC to win out too. Like, there's a good chance the Huskies have no top 25 wins.
All right, let's move on. At that number 10 spot, we have Miami, followed by Wisconsin, TCU, and Penn State.
Tom, these are his teams. These teams are, a lot of them are getting dissed. Wisconsin's getting dissed for their schedule. Miami's getting dissed because they've had way too many close games. TCU's getting dissed because they can't score a dang touchdown in the game against Iowa State. And Penn State, man, tough loss. They've got the second best loss of the year behind Notre Dame's loss to Georgia. Penn State, man, I think the committee, they owe them something. It's like a makeup call, Tom. I think Penn State might have a chance to sneak up there. They only need, really, in realistically, all the Penn State needs is 3 losses to be in the top 4, right? 3 losses can happen the rest of this college football season.
What concerns me is everyone else that these teams play, Miami of Florida, even Wisconsin because of the Big Ten championship game, they have chances to get quality wins. All the teams above Penn State have that as well. Penn State, their chance was last week against Ohio State. They didn't get it. Michigan State, it's a road game. Sparty lost. That hurt Penn State. After that, Rutgers, Nebraska, Maryland, 3 bottom feeders.
So brutal, garbage, and terrible states to end the year is what you're saying.
Yeah, so they need a lot of help because they're not going to have that extra win that puts them above. Penn State, James, is not going to have a top 25 win unless Michigan rallies hard.
Yeah,
they're just not going to have one.
Okay, let's go ahead and move into the top 6. At number 6, we have Ohio State, followed by Oklahoma. At number 4, we have Clemson, Notre Dame at number 3, and in that number 2 spot, we have Georgia.
So there's a lot of surprises here, Tom and Jordan, and I'm sorry for just to pop in there, but I think the biggest surprise to me of all is Georgia over Alabama, and maybe it shouldn't be a surprise. Maybe smart people got in a room and made a smart decision, because if you put the resumes next to each other, if you take the names, you pull the brand names and the brand names of that coach, Georgia should be number 1, Tom. They have really looked as impressive as any team. They've looked as impressive. They've played great. They've overcome adversity. They lost their starting quarterback, and they're playing better with their backup, who, by the way, Tom, is a true freshman, Jake from State Farm, as we've called him. And they've got the best win in this college football season, a 1-point victory on the road at a Notre Dame team that's ranked number 3 that looks like to me, Tom, they will make the college football playoff. I don't see Miami or Stanford giving them too much of a game.
I'll add one more thing here with Georgia as well. They still have a road game against Auburn coming up. That's a game that could get them even higher in the polls and not in the polls, in the eyes of the committee. That's going to be a big boost for them.
And I want to take it real quick to the ACC. Do you guys think Clemson should be ranked above Miami?
Well,
this significantly.
It's interesting. So that will play itself out. But what it signals to me, clearly signals to me, is that there is absolutely no chance that the ACC champion gets in if it is Miami who beats Clemson but loses to Notre Dame. So let me throw that logic out there. Notre Dame plays Miami next weekend on the 11th of November. If Miami loses that game, Tom, and goes on to win the ACC, I don't think they have a shot in HE double hockey sticks to make the playoff as the ACC champs. Your thoughts on that one?
Clemson has a chance to get one more good win. NC State and potentially a Miami or Vatech in the ACC championship game. At 4 right now, they do and they don't control their own destiny. And I say that because Oklahoma is a team I'm looking at. They're going to beat Oklahoma. If Oklahoma takes care of their business the rest of the way, Oklahoma is actually in really good shape. Their next 3 of the next games at Oklahoma State in Bedlam. That is a win that might not count as top 10 right now. The Cowboys could end the year as a top 10 team. They'll be top 15. TCU, same boat, could be a top 10 team. West Virginia could sneak in as top 25. And then, in all likelihood, Oklahoma will either get Oklahoma State again, TCU, or, James, the redemption game against Iowa State, as they're being very quiet right now.
I hate how the Big 12 does their championship game, by the way. It is so stupid that two teams can play each other. They can play each other back-to-back weeks if they happen to play the last week of the season. They need to just get two more teams and go and play two divisions so you don't have that. It's like you don't even get a benefit of winning the regular season conference champion because you got to play the second place team that you already had to play guaranteed. And if you lose that one, that team gets in. And if you win it, okay, you beat them twice. What does that prove?
So I think that if Oklahoma runs the table, I think there is a very good chance they will jump Clemson.
Ooh.
And we know that Notre Dame and Georgia, if they take care of business, they're probably going to get in. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, you could see the ACC get the shaft after winning it last year.
I think that's going to bring me to my next question for you guys. We've mentioned a bunch of one-loss teams. So for both of you, which one-loss team do you have making it into that playoff?
I think as things stand right now, the team with the best chance, I believe that it is Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're the most likely, but I think they have the best chance because they truly control their own destiny. They're 3 right now. They're ahead of other teams, and they've got some very quality games on the schedule. Miami could be the ACC winner. So at that point, you have Notre Dame who beat the ACC winner. How do you put Notre Dame behind the ACC champion? A game against Stanford as well, with wins over USC, NC State, Michigan State, and a one-point loss to Georgia. Notre Dame has the best chance. Maybe not most likely, though.
So, James, before we get to you, I want to go ahead and get some of those reactions. And so, guys, make sure to give me a heart for Clemson, a wow face for Notre Dame, and a ha-ha for Ohio State, and a thumbs up for someone else. James, your take.
So here's what's really interesting. This is how crazy this thing could get. We could either have 3 or 4 one-loss teams making the playoff, or we could have 3 undefeated teams make the playoff. There's still so much football to play. Yeah. Every team has either 4, some have 5 games, I believe, left to play if they haven't had their bye yet, plus the playoff, plus a conference championship game. So there's a few teams out there that might have 6 games left with a conference championship game. You will likely, Tom, I think only have 1 undefeated team make the playoffs. In my opinion, it's going to be the winner of that Georgia-Alabama game. But even then, one of those teams could drop a game and beat the other. So you might have a single undefeated game. Every single year it happens where somebody comes out of nowhere, and someone in this top 4, Tom, I would bet would have 3 losses at the end of the year. That's how crazy college football is. So
if someone's going to have 3 losses of those top 4, I look at Notre Dame because they have the toughest schedule.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the only one that wouldn't.
Depends on, which Clemson's going to show up every week.
Yeah, I would say under no circumstance would Alabama have 3 losses, but I could see any of those other top 3, 4, 5, 6, any of them have 3 losses because it's just the nature of college football. But from this list in particular, which one-loss team will make the playoffs? I think it's Notre Dame, just because I think the only one that truly controls their own destiny out of the one-loss teams. They went out, they are in, guaranteed, the way I see it standing right now.
So, all right, and let's go ahead and recap then our top 6. Number 1, we have Georgia, followed by Alabama in that number 2 spot. Notre Dame coming in at number 3, Clemson number 4, and number 5 is Oklahoma, followed by Ohio State. And let's go ahead and recap all of our top 25 playoff rankings. And number 25 is Washington State, followed by Michigan State, Memphis, Arizona, Stanford, and at number 20 is NC State, followed by LSU, UCF, USC, Mississippi State. Entering that 15th spot is Iowa State, followed by Auburn, Virginia Tech, Washington, and Oklahoma State. Moving on into the top 10 is Miami, Wisconsin, TCU, and Penn State. So, guys, we were talking about one-loss teams. Now, let's move on to, can a 2-loss conference champion make the playoff? Is that doable at this point?
I see a scenario. I do not think that scenario is likely, but I do think that there is a chance. I'm saying there's a chance, James.
Okay. You're telling me there's a chance.
I'm confident.
So here is how it happens, and it gets super duper complicated.
Woo-wee.
Georgia falls apart.
Yeah.
Notre Dame falls apart. Alabama goes undefeated. Oklahoma loses a game. Clemson loses a game. Ohio State loses a game. USC wins out. I think at that point, one of those teams is going to have 2 losses. They'll get in. Yeah. So it takes a lot of help elsewhere. A team like USC, a team like Auburn, Iowa State, they don't control their destiny right now. As of right now, what I think there is a chance that it happens, but it's not a likely chance. It's a very slim chance.
Yeah. So If it is possible, Tom, I would say, can one? Yes. Will one? No. So I guess I'm going, ha. There's telling me there's a chance, right?
Slim chance.
Slim chance. And so here's how I see it play out. I see it play out that maybe in Ohio State loses a game to Michigan State. They still have to play, I believe, or Michigan. They lose one of those games. They still walk into the Big Ten title game. They drop a 50-0 spot on Wisconsin.
Undefeated Wisconsin
like they did 3 years ago. And then mayhem happens elsewhere, and you've got to put a 2-loss team in, and that 2-loss team happens to be Ohio State. I think it's possible just because, they're getting a lot of love. They still control their own destiny, and they're one of the few teams that can drop a game and really have no chance of not getting in their college in their conference's playoff at this point. So yeah, I think it's possible, but very low chance in my opinion.
Okay, you guys, before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts on our first playoff rankings that were revealed?
Gotcha.
James, I'll start with you.
I'm glad this is a committee, Tom, that you can trust. It's fair and balanced, Tom. It's a committee you can trust. Okay, this is not fake news. They are just taking the FACK, the facts, okay, and they're bringing them to us. They're putting things like quality wins, quality losses into play, head-to-heads coming into play. And I'm really happy what I saw out of Georgia being over Alabama, out of Oklahoma being over Ohio State. And I think Clemson at number 4, based on what we saw, their strength of schedule and those wins they've got, that actually makes a lot of sense at 4. So I think they nailed it.
I agree with you there. I think in terms of conferences, the Big Ten is not happy right now. They're very concerned being behind the Big 12, ACC, and SEC. And if you're the Pac-12, you're done.
Yeah?
You're not getting in. I mean, you need a miracle right now. Your highest-ranked team is Washington with 1 loss and a very good chance that the Huskies beat 0 top 25 teams when the year is over. It sucks. That's where the Huskies are at.
Yeah.
All right, and that'll wrap it up for us, you guys. If you're just joining us, don't worry, because we're going to go ahead and loop everything for you, so make sure to stay tuned. We will be back next Tuesday for the second playoff rankings to be released. For James Yoder, Tom Downey, I'm Jordan Giorgio. We'll see you next time.